Russia's Vladimir Putin says his plans do not include an occupation of Ukraine. In an early morning speech ahead of Thursday's attack, Putin said the move was necessary to protect civilians, he says, in two breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine. Putin's actions, of course, have been condemned by leaders around the world. And for more on this, I want to bring in now Ivo Daalder. He is the president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. He also served as the U.S. ambassador to NATO from 2009 to 2013. Thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador.
My pleasure, Nancy.
Now, Ambassador, there have been so many developments. How do you foresee the crisis in Ukraine unfolding over even just the next several days?
Well, I think we'll continue to see major Russian military forces moving very quickly into virtually all aspects of Ukraine. The real question that we don't know the answer to is, are these forces going to be surrounding major population centers and then stop and sort of besiege the city in order to force a surrender, or are they actually going to engage in a direct takeover of the big cities? In Kharkiv, we're already seeing Russian forces directly engaging in the cities. That's terrible news for the people living there, and not a good omen for what might happen when they get closer to Kyiv, which I think will happen in a matter of days. Clearly, the Russian military is capable of taking over Ukraine. Whether they can maintain an occupation, of course, is something that is quite a different matter.
Have you been surprised by how quickly this has all been unfolding?
Unfortunately, I haven't been surprised. I think it was pretty clear from the way the forces were being put forward and the disposition of those forces in the last few weeks or indeed months that things were very serious. And of course, the administration kept warning about this. As someone who's been in the inside, who has had intelligence information on a regular basis, fed to me, you don't say these things publicly unless you're really sure of what you're saying. And, you know, going back to November, we were talking to our allies about what was happening. And of course, in December, started to release information that turned out to be absolutely accurate as to the exact nature of what the Russians were assembling, and now increasingly looks like also accurate to the targets that the Russians have put on the table. Our intelligence has been very good. Unfortunately, it's also been right.
Now, what do you see as the end goal here for Putin? What is he trying to achieve?
I think he's trying to achieve sort of two big things. One is to control Ukraine and make sure that it is governed in a way that is subservient to Moscow's and to Putin's interests. He has succeeded in most of the surrounding former Soviet republics to install or maintain people who do his bidding. Just earlier this year, we saw that in Kazakhstan, that he intervened in order to make sure that the leaders there are willing to do his bidding. And in Belarus, we have now seen fully that coming to force. So that's one thing. He wants the same in Ukraine. He wants a puppet regime that he can control. But secondly, and this is what we all ought to be worried about, he really is serious, I think, about re-establishing some form of the Soviet Union and indeed the Imperial Russian Empire with control over, or at least influence over, parts of Central and Eastern Europe. He wants to turn the clock back 30 years to when the Soviet Union still existed, and when the Soviet Union, through the Warsaw Pact, exercised dominion over countries like Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, and Hungary. That's his real goal, ultimately, to get the United States out of Europe and have Russia as the major power in Europe. We need to be very clear that if that's his goal, he cannot and must not succeed.
So do you see this going beyond Ukraine?
It only will go beyond Ukraine if for some reason Europe and the United States get divided about the response and don't adequately signal to the Russians that if there is any movement into NATO territory, whether it's an inch or a mile or more, there will be complete defense of that territory by the United States and by all the other 29 NATO allies. The NATO leaders are meeting on an emergency summit, something that's never happened before, over tomorrow. And there they will have to reaffirm, and I no doubt will reaffirm, the great importance of unity, and also to have the capabilities military in place in the Baltic states, in Poland, in Romania, if necessary, in Hungary and Slovakia, which are neighbors of Ukraine, to be sure that they are defended and that Vladimir Putin gets the message. Whatever you do in Ukraine, it's not going to affect NATO territory.
And Ambassador, on that note, the president authorized deployment of ground and air forces in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, as well as Romania. He has also sent troops to Germany. But he is saying that U.S. forces will not fight in Ukraine. So why ramp up troops in those areas? What is the United States preparing for?
Well, we're preparing the capacity to defend those areas. The troops in Germany will also be deployed forward over the next few days and weeks, because those are the countries that border Russia, Belarus, which from a military perspective is the same as Russia, as well as Ukraine. In Romania case, the Black Sea. They need to be defended in order to make absolutely clear to Vladimir Putin that if he has any idea about invading the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, or Poland, or Romania, or any other country that is a member of NATO, if he attacks with cyber capabilities, if he attacks militarily, there are consequences, and those consequences are also severe and complete defense of those countries to make sure that they will be defended and that whatever Russia does, it won't succeed.
And the world is watching. Ambassador Ivo Daalder, thank you very much.
My pleasure.